the root rewards, which is connecting this entire ecosystem. I got to give a huge shout out to Kevin. I mean, anybody that's been in the Discord, you've seen Kevin talking. That guy is transparent, got all the insights, been an awesome addition to see throughout that. When we're talking about root rewards, one of the first things that I'm seeing people talk about is, oh my goodness, the daily claim. I missed it by just a sliver. Is there any chance that there's going to be any push notifications or emails for reminding on that daily? Because I'm seeing some people kind of losing it over that.
Yeah, no, it's a really good point. Notifications definitely something that we can work on. I think there's a couple of paths. So we have like underlying in Sylo protocols, notifications is one of the things that we built, and working out the best way to kind of distribute those, because not everyone has email. Obviously, they want to stay, anonymous or Web3 native in their interactions with the wallets and apps and stuff like that. So kind of have to think a little bit around those. But one idea I've been thinking about for notifications potentially is to tie it to something like the Gurn Labs wallet. If your pass is signed into there, we could send a mobile notification to that. So that's potentially a path to go down. I think it's definitely good feedback and something that we can put into the roadmap backlog. Spaces is another thing. Having the ability to send cross-app notifications in Spaces is part of that underlying design. If you've got a Spaces open, you could potentially have an inbox in your Spaces that receives notifications across the ecosystem.
Maybe most excited for what's going on with Sylo. So we got a ton of updates with that. We got the Sylo Spaces. We have Prof. Sparky giving out a ton of alpha and or not alpha. Is everything going swimmingly? Is everything not going swimmingly because it's going off the rails?
Yeah, we definitely did train Sparky on Brooke's personality traits. No, so I think like really important to have the context about Sylo in the Spaces, which is that we are building protocols that deliver interoperability that people can build applications on top of. That's the core thing. We bootstrap those with some applications that help prove those points and get them out there. And then we have some very hero applications that we're like pushing ourselves that will be engines of user adoption. Sylo has released, I think, 3 protocols in the last month that all provide capability for those builders to build more interoperable applications. There's another one coming, which is the permissions protocol, and that will kind of close the loop on a core set of things that Sylo needs to do to make data, users, networks interoperable between applications. The last little bit that helps UBF go from a tool that can help people create interoperable assets to an IP asset management system for creators and brands and studios. And so building those protocols is the hard work. That's all the ice beneath the iceberg. Building the apps on top of that takes a little bit of work, but it's not as intensive, and the progress on that or iterations on that can be fast. Spaces is the first way we wanted to test bootstrapping the social graph. And so that's how we can allow users to create a profile and a network that is decentralized that they can take with them between applications and experiences. And so first edition of that is super simple. Like I said earlier, I've got another update sitting on my desktop here, which is on the staging side, which improves the user experience quite a bit. And so we'll start rolling out these changes, onboarding some more communities, adding more features, and really get the integrations of the underlying social graph into the applications that we're building, so you can start to see this portability and interoperability coming to life.
Well, the Spaces is one thing, but then when you go into the Readyverse early access and it pops up saying this is the Sylo platform, I almost fainted. So can you explain how that is fully integrated? Because that one I was not expecting that.
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, like when we've built these protocols, it's been hard to visualize how they can show up for an application or experience. But if you take something like Sylo, it's touching a number of different points in Readyverse. So out the gate, the UBF blueprints are stored in a Sylo. The asset register, which connects which tokens you own to to your access to those different areas is built on the Sylo network. So on Sylo protocols, and so all of the underlying bits that power the Readyverse are built on TRN and Sylo. Those are the two like kind of protocol layers. We'll introduce obviously altered state and the Think protocol in that future phase that Lenny talked about earlier. And so then you'll see all three of those things come together. The next step is to integrate profiles. So that'll be another Sylo that's been integrated into the Readyverse, and then the social network off the back of profiles that will be integrated, and you'll start to see that show up in the multiplayer user experience. So really, like all the things we've been saying about how these protocols enable applications that can build interoperable experiences, you're starting to see that come to life now.
I think the thing I'm excited about too is Spaces is the plugin feature, like where brands and like
developers
IP can create like a custom plugin that caters to their community and makes that space like fully unique.
Yeah, that's that's a really important point too. So Spaces can evolve incredibly quickly, and people might have been like, okay, well this user experience is a little bit flat, but what Spaces is a platform, and because it's being built as a platform, again, that takes more time to get the architecture right, so that you can enable things like the plugin system, where any developer could build a plugin for Spaces that adds unique functionality to their community. So you could have a trade, let's say a Tradeverse plugin that means that any space could turn on the ability to trade inside of their spaces. Or you could have, we're talking about streaming gameplay plugin, so that what we can now do in Gobs and Goblins could happen in any game. Or it could be a wallet plugin, or it could be a
altered state.
Yeah, an altered state an agent plugin, which we already have with Sparky. It's the other thing that we kind of tried to design Spaces for, is like a native place for agents to interact with users and communities. The next plugin we will release is the assets plugin. So everything you're doing with assets in Futureverse dashboard would now be available in Sylo Spaces. And for anyone who's building a space, they can they can now build their own Futureverse dashboard just by enabling those plugins and using the Sylo Spaces platform. So they don't have to come to the Futureverse one. If they've got their own brand in their own community, they can enable that plugin and build their own user interface.
Yeah, what I think is cool too is like specifically with Sylo Spaces as a platform, it offers this solution for partners and brands and IP to cultivate a space, either exclusive or open, however they choose to set that up for their community. And then from like the community's perspective, they can navigate through these other spaces. And this is the proof point for our community right now, where they get to experience it specifically within like the commons for TTK. And then also the Readyverse dashboard. Both of those experiences are completely different. The Readyverse dashboard is being used right now for 60 players who are testing the Readyverse experience. They're able to provide feedback, and it's a very exclusive experience. Whereas the Commons for TTK is a place where it's open to everyone and people can come in and join. And I mean, there's like still, you still need a Futureverse, but like, you can kind of set it up differently. And I think that's what's really cool from like a brand perspective, and then also from a community perspective.
Totally.
On the Sylo pricing, well, I guess it's two train of thoughts, so I'll try to keep it brief. But one, it's super cool to see that, or at least my assumption is that everything is going to be called something Sylo, because you had the announcement the other day where it was the pricing Sylo, and I don't know if it's going to be like AI Sylo, asset Sylo, go down the list. I was trying to talk with people about it. I'm curious who's going to be the users of that Sylo pricing, because it sounds cool, but is that for AI agents? Is that for exchanges? Is that for in-game? Where does the Sylo pricing fit in?
Yeah, protocols are made for developers, basically. And agents as I guess an extension of that, because they can be developers or they can interact with protocols like this, and we'll share exactly how those interactions happen in a further Think episode. But we've got a really great way to connect agents to protocols and to services. The primary user of protocols has always been developers, and it will be the same in this case. And we're bootstrapping that as a developer that's building on those protocols to show people how it works. In fact, developers who might be integrating UBF or the Readyverse or whatever are using these things, but they don't even necessarily know. It's kind of one layer abstracted from them as well. But if your game's connected to the Readyverse, and if you onboard UBF, then you're using at least 3 silos in that integration that you directly may not even know exist.
The Otto Blockchain, they recently had kind of an onboarding campaign where they had a couple more people get in. I know that you've talked about a lot of really important things on the institutional side from Otto. You and Jeff were on, I think it was in X Spaces like a while ago. And you guys only got like a very brief time towards the end, but it sounded like Otto was going to be a really big deal. So curious if you could just give any kind of insights on how that's going.
Yeah, the really only remaining bit to complete is the integration and testing of Ripple custody. That's actually quite a technically and security challenging process, as it should be, because you want to make sure that stuff works well and is also super safe. So once that's done, which isn't too far off, we'll be able to show the end-to-end Otto experience and onboard those partners who've been waiting to onboard, and start to show how you could do DeFi in a way that is a little bit safer for counterparties and maybe easier to fit into regulatory frameworks. And these frameworks are coming now. The US macro environment is going to create regulations, and people may assume that that the climate change means that anything goes and you'll be able to do whatever you like. But that's not actually what will happen. What will happen is regulatory clarity will happen. And part of regulatory clarity means that there will be regulations that need to be followed. And those will be tuned specifically for the environment, the context, and the technology, and where the stuff is going. But they will exist. And that's generally a good thing. Regulation generally grows the scale of industries because people feel safer in putting and allocating capital to that. And some of the run-up we've seen in crypto prices is directly attributable to the fact that institutions feel safer, that clarity is coming. And so I think Otto would be in a great space to take advantage of what that next phase of growth looks like for institutional adoption and for meeting the requirements that regulatory clarity will inevitably give to the space.